everybody, it's me, Aaron Bedard.
Is this thing on?
Oh, shut up. Fuck.
Hello, it's me, Aaron Bedard.
Shut the fuck up. So anyway, sorry, swearing right off the bat. We're good for 50 swears per episode, pretty much.
Which page are you on? Equitas Veterans or VGR?
I don't know.
Because you're not live on VGR.
Are you sure? What's going on?
Oh, here we go.
Oh,
now you're on.
Now I'm on.
So
you
got
see,
a
you
bit
need
of
to
a delay.
refresh it. See, I got 5 people right here. See, he's messing with me.
Hey,
Oh, okay.
that's it. Here.
So how's everyone doing out there? We've been trying to have a hiatus here. How about you, Brian? Have you been on a hiatus?
Fuck off.
Okay. We're trying to have a little bit of a break because we're coming up October 5th. We're going off to Ottawa.
We're getting a little cranky and old in our days and just needed to, we needed to fuck off. So we fucked off.
Desperately
We're
need
back.
breaks. So this week on the show, in case you didn't hear, we have our good friend Scott Casey, who recently has published the book Ghostkeepers. Hey, hello. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Thanks for having me in, boys.
It's good to see you, man. Again.
There's Brian.
In fact, this is the only time I've actually seen you in this country. Because every other time we've met up, it's been in,
Elsewhere.
yeah, the land of sin and lies. Yeah.
What's that?
Free guns.
Well,
You guys go to SHOT Show.
we go to SHOT Show the last couple of years. And for those of you who don't know that, first of all, you're leading shitty lives if you don't know what SHOT Show is. You need to correct yourselves. Every good Canadian owns at least 6 firearms,
At least.
right? And you need to work on that. So that said, we've met up the last couple times in Vegas. That's where they put on SHOT Show. And it's a really it's a unique event. It's a good event for networking. And it's just fantastic for people like me that like to finger caress the trigger every now and then.
Jesus.
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Lots of finger caressing. So,
Here
this
it
is
is.
the book, Ghostkeepers, right there. If you haven't seen it yet, it's available on Amazon. Pardon me.
Right.
And is it in stores yet?
No, not in
Is it
stores.
starting online?
Amazon.com, Chapters Indigo, Amazon.ca, Books a Million, you name it, it's out there.
Outstanding. So I got involved in advocacy in 2011-12, and at that time, the first people I saw online were people like Mike Blay and the old classics, and also an up-and-comer like Kevin Barry. And through Kevin, I learned about this gentleman here. You're up in the middle of British Columbia?
Central BC, yeah.
Central
KAMLOOPS.
BC. And you have been advocating far longer than we have.
Yeah, I was advocating back when we used rotary dial phones.
Outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seriously?
You still have one of those
I
phones.
still have one.
Or actually, at his age, he's got one of those phones that have like the numbers that are the size of like, you know, your wallet.
Yeah.
So it's like
A
2,
full-size
5. Yeah.
Rubik's Cube for each tag number, yeah.
He's not that old.
So what
It's
was
bugging him.
advocacy back then? What were some priorities, and what era or period there? Early 2000s, late 90s?
It was, yeah, late 90s was more or less when I got into it.
And what perpetuated it? What got you involved?
A lot of buddies of mine had taken their own lives. And,
Right.
So there had to be some way to get guys to communicate and to deal with what was going on with them, you know, get them help and stuff like that. So it was just a matter of, you know, making a few phone calls, staying in touch with the guys and just getting it to roll that way. And, you know, if you needed to get the paperwork done for Veterans Affairs back then, you just phoned somebody and they gave you what they did and that sort of thing.
So you essentially came forward, like when we keep talking about stuff like stigma and issues along that, this guy came forward back when that was at its heyday, back when we never talked about these things. And the people that did talk about these things were kind of kept off into the corner. I have to admit, like for me, when I've come forward with what I've dealt with, it was made easier by guys like you that had done that before. Because we needed the trailblazers out there to, you know, for lack of a better term, they grew a pair, so we didn't have to grow such a big one, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
There's one thing I want to do here that's a little bit of a sidebar, and neither of you know about it. And everyone loves that, right? Everyone loves being put on the spot.
Surprises.
So I got a
you never
pen.
do it.
Got a pen, and I got this thing here. It's old school. To check. Don't be stealing my fucking banking information.
I know what those are.
Okay? So here's what's going to happen. Push-up challenge that's been out there. 22 push-ups, right? I did a couple of them, and in where the fuck were we? The Supreme Court, the Lano Supreme Court. I've seen you crack off a couple, and I think from my perspective, while I certainly support the endeavor, and I do, I've seen a lot of people detracting on it. So I'm gonna put my 2 cents out there, and I'm gonna let Scott say what he thinks. My 2 cents is, if you're gonna do things like that, you have to do the whole part of it. I'll give you an example. You know the people putting on a mustache in November for Movember, but then you ask them, hey, have you actually got your prostate checked? And like, oh no, I don't do that. Well, that's kind of not how it works. You got to do the whole thing. And part of 22 push-ups was donating $22 to a military charity.
Yeah.
So if you did the 22 push-ups, kick ass, way to go. But you got to do the other part, which is actually send a check or cash to the people that are out there doing work. And so I'm writing my $22 to Military Minds. And doing that right here. I'm writing the check, right? And those of you that were kind enough to crack off the push-ups and put it all over your pages and share it around the world, great. But you got to follow through. So you guys do your thing, and I'm going to Military Minds Inc.
Outstanding.
Thanks, Brian.
It's only $22. It's not a big fucking deal. But that's
adds
part
up.
of it, right? That's how it's done. So there, it wasn't too much of a shock.
It wasn't a shocker.
Military Minds.
Yeah,
So-
I did the push-ups, and the thing with doing that sort of awareness campaign is that it's not how many push-ups you do or what form or whatever. It's the follow-through. It's dealing with with the guys that are having the issues. It's connecting with them and saying, hey, I did 22 push-ups because I was thinking of you today. If you need to talk to me, give me a call. I'm here anytime, and that's the way I have always dealt with it, is to spread that message, that people are actually getting what's going on out there. It's not just a bunch of, like the Ice Bucket Challenge did for ALS. I mean, huge.
Right. And
Same
there's
thing.
there's positive ways. I will never sit here and go, oh, don't give to this charity or slag another one. What I'll try to do, I shouldn't say I won't, because we all fail sometimes. I try not to do that. Yeah. What I try to do is turn around and go, instead of knocking a group, I'll turn around to a good one that I know is doing work out there and promote them to some degree. So instead of saying X group sucks, I'll turn to you and say the truth, which is, when I was having trouble, guys reached out to me through Military Minds. I reached out to them. I got connected with people that made me healthier. And so that's my donation to Military Minds. So now I've actually finished my part of the deal. Cool.
There you go.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And, money that we do raise through Military Minds, it goes directly to the vets. None of us take a wage whatsoever. We're all volunteers, including myself.
And me.
And you yourself, yeah. We don't take any money for us. This year, actually coming up for 2017, we're taking Chris Ashton. He's a British vet. We're bringing him right from the UK to SHOT Show this year.
Wicked.
So he was wounded very badly in a grenade incident. He's in a wheelchair. He's lost a good portion of his mobility and his body parts as well. He was doing really well. He was up walking and talking, and he got ill again, as happens quite often with wounds of that nature. And he actually was at the point where he was going to give up. And so it was good. I was contacted about it, and I says, you know what? This guy's a fighter. That's the reason he's here in the first place. So we need to give him something that's going to motivate him to stay with us, because the guy's a warrior to the core. So I said, why don't we take him to SHOT?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfect. I mean, he's going to be with guys that are all of the same, mentality. We all like weapons. We all like brotherhood. We all, it's the essence of who we are.
And I mean, a previous guest we had here, Mark Campbell. Mark's come with us to SHOT, and actually, I've learned a lot just by watching how Mark handles himself with, obviously he's got physical limitations, but these events, they're so well put on that you can accommodate pretty much anything. I mean, guys with dogs are there, guys in chairs are there, and so yeah, you know what? If this is going to make this guy's day a little brighter, and trust me, it will, because it's a good time.
Absolutely.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right on.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, it's great.
If he gets tired, we'll help push him around. You know, that's how this game is played.
You got it.
So, got my little cheat sheet over here. One of them was push-ups. Talked about that. All right, here we go. I got to give some credit out there. Remember how I did the hire 2 corporals challenge? Well, I haven't fucking done that yet. But they did hire a warrant officer. And actually a very good one. So, no names, no pack drill. But I do know a guy who applied to Veterans Affairs. And he's an infantry warrant officer, just retired. Going through a little medical stuff on his own. And yeah, so they have hired a guy.
Fantastic.
And they finally hired someone that's not a colonel or general that didn't pad their career into there. They've actually hired a worker.
Yeah.
So
Somebody that's on our level too that gets
credit where it's due. I asked for 2 corporals. You hired a warrant officer. Well, good. I'm glad to see there's guys actually getting positions into Veterans Affairs as vets themselves. So last thing I want to talk about here before we go nuts on our guest of honor, budget money. Okay, so you've all heard the department and the minister cracking on about how, okay, well, $5 billion in the budget, and I'm not saying it ain't there. What I'm telling you though is it's not there every year. That's $5 billion over a number of years. So you break that one down, and on top of that, say I create a benefit and I tell you that it's going to cost $1 billion. But then I create criteria that make it so friggin' difficult that you can't qualify for it. And then we do not spend that billion because we just deny access to that benefit by policy. So, yes, we've seen a budget that said, hey, there's these benefits have been increased. But what we got to keep our eye to is, okay, now is it an actual increase? Or are they just saying there's this possible ceiling of $5 billion, but then the department goes and creates all these criteria so you can't get it? Classic example, last election, all the guys that are wounded that are on income assistance due to their wounds are going up to 90%, getting a 15% raise. That's what the campaign said. Well, what happens once the bean counters in the department get their hands on it and start creating the benefit the way they want? Well, it doesn't go to the CISIP guys. And guys get bumped down to private 3 from corporal 0. So some guys are only getting a 3% raise, some guys are getting none. And yes, the department is trying to figure their way through that, but that's what I want people to be aware of. $5 billion is only $5 billion when checks are written and things are being handed out. That $5 billion can be clawed back, can be denied, can be held from you real easy just by creating a whole bunch of rules that make sure no one ever qualifies for the damn thing. Right? So, vets community, that's one of the things we got to look for. All right, man. So, one of the first things I want to ask you, there's a lot of talk these days about peacekeeping, peacemaking, and all that shit. And one of the things that's come up is that people are rightly saying that it's difficult to watch atrocity. And I think that's true. But what I want people to know, and I want Scott to explain it in his words, is your tour didn't just watch atrocity. It was active. You guys weren't just there as scribes. You actually got in and did the business of soldiering. It just didn't get reported back here that much. So take a second or two and just explain to us what you physically did. What things were actually happening that you would consider combat or combat-like operations on your deployment. And then while you're doing that, explain where and where you did deploy.
Right. Well, we deployed to Croatia, a state within the former Yugoslavia, in 1992, March of. And as history tells, the breakup actually started in the 90s. By 91, Slovenia had moved on, had broken away, and then Croatia wanted to break away as well. And during that time, they were doing what was called ethnic cleansing. And there's different levels of it, and it goes right up to and including genocide. So the ethnic cleansing was moving Serbs out or Croats out of the more predominantly opposite areas. So if it was a Serb neighborhood, anybody that was Croatian was ousted, and if it was Croatian, anybody that was Serb was ousted.
Right.
So not everybody wanted to go peacefully. Of course, they want to live where their home is, and you know, they took up arms, and some of them were obviously, you know, didn't have time to take up arms. And if they wouldn't leave peacefully, they were just shot right there on the spot. And that scene was recorded numerous times. You know.
So right now you've got Vince Tytler's just joined. Vince served in Croatia, and so he was in the Medak pocket, and a lot of guys from his unit were. And they went through a unique thing where basically for 9 years the government essentially denied that operation ever happened. But they did come around to it and actually awarding people, you know, Commander-in-Chief's commendation. But more importantly, the government finally got to actually letting that story get told. Your story from your tour still hasn't largely been told.
Yeah, Jim Davis wrote a book, The Sharp End. That's out there, and Major General Lewis Mackenzie retired. He's also written his book as well, Peacekeeper, The Road to Sarajevo, and both of them are from a higher level. You know, Jim was a sergeant, and obviously General Mackenzie was officer status. So my look comes from the ground level, front line, you know, in the trenches kind of.
Corporal Casey.
Yeah, kind of viewpoint. And although it's, you know, the story is written by me and, you know, it deals with the stuff that I went through, a lot of my tales in here are the same across all of November Company and also with the Van Duze Alpha Company as well. They, you know, none of us were, you know, immune to what was going on there. Like we were immersed in it.
See, now, with all the problems that happened in later missions, all the things that guys can complain about, and they've got a lot of things that they can legitimately complain about, I never once did anything on, for example, in Afghanistan, doubting that I would be supported if I had to defend myself. Now, some people might have been in that circumstance. That was not any circumstance that I ever had to go through. You guys didn't have that. Right. There was basically no top cover for the activity that you had to do.
Yeah.
And so what does that feel like when you cross the wire of your camp and you know that you're going to have to act and you will not be supported?
Yeah, that was, I mean, there's a couple interesting points in there. Number one is, you know, Lou Mackenzie said this back in the day, was the newest thing we had was a 21-year-old soldier with, or sorry, a 19-year-old soldier with a 21-year-old rifle. That
Right.
was the newest gear. And the CF-18 Hornet was relatively new. So that's what we had. We were driving around where, you know, in Sarajevo in particular, there was 3,000 mortar and artillery rounds landing in the city every day. And we were driving around in the Iltis. You know, we didn't have G-Wags. And
Unarmored Jeep for...
Yeah, it's basically like driving around in a Honda Civic.
Right.
So we were doing lots of that. That finally got kiboshed on, I think, day 4 or 5, and we ended up in the APCs, which are, again, Vietnam-era equipment. So there's that, and then we're surrounded. There was only 750 of us because 200 of them stayed back in Croatia, and we were literally surrounded by tens of thousands of Bosnians, you know, Serbs and Muslims and all of these different entities all battling it out, the TDF.
Piles of tanks and
yeah, there was
real
M84s, T-54, 55s. I mean, it was real time. You know, there was the armor presence was high. The one good piece of kit that we did have, and although we didn't employ it, you know, we did use it tactically, but we didn't fire it, was the tow under armor. Mm-hmm. We had tow capability, and we actually had an incident where it was very close. I actually had the missile was armed. I had the trigger cover up, and I was just waiting. All they had to do was depress their secondary armament on this T-55, and I was ordered to, you know, take them out. So, and gladly he didn't, because at that point we were the deck commander was issuing out fire control orders to kill every tank we could see.
And see, that's part of what needs to get told here, is when people talk about peacekeeping, I don't think they realize that good old Corporal Casey here has got his thumb on the button ready to fire a tow missile towards a T-55 if it so much as drops its barrel down. They don't realize what it was. Because so often the image being put out there was handing toys to kids off the back of an ML or, you know, things like that.
Taken.
And for me, I served in Bosnia too, but I served in Bosnia a lot later. And for example, one of the things we did was keep tabs on refugee movements. Well, it was actually your guys' tours where the refugees were being created.
Yeah.
Civilians were turned into refugees when he was there in 1994. 92, pardon me. In 92, I was in grade 9. Right? I'm worried about, you know, what album is going to come out from...
Thanks for making me feel antiquated, by the way.
That was it. My life then revolved around the latest grunge music coming out. And I never thought for 2 seconds about a battalion of Canadian guys on the other end of the world.
Yeah. And you know, the reality there is, and we did a documentary a few years ago called Sector Sarajevo. It was on History Television. And General Mackenzie actually
interviewed a lot.
he actually points out in there that he phones the UN and basically it's a busy signal, or sorry, it just rang and rang and rang. Somebody did finally pick it up and they said, "You're where? What mission? What? Who is this?" So they didn't, even the UN didn't know where we were. You know, we were, any rules that were being, you know, put upon us, we were changing them on the battlefield every day because we had to survive.
So they designed a mission and walked away from it.
Right. And that's the fear I have with what's going on right now, in that our government has taken 1,000 guys and they've said, okay, you guys are going to train to be peacekeepers and we're going to do this, we're going to get you all ready and everything. And then they went and looked for a mission. They said, "Hey,
that's the scary part.
Find us a mission. We got 1,000 guys who want to get into the middle of a bar fight." That's not sound tactics right there.
The Security Council seat.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
See, and that's a tough one because when I look at it, see, and this is one of the things I really like about this show is we're more than happy to have differing opinions here. See, I see it kind of different. I'm happy to some degree to see our defense minister considering options and going through a decent amount of planning before we're committing to a place. I actually think that's a positive thing. What I don't like is what appears to be shopping our soldiers around.
Exactly.
To me, Canadian soldiers should be in 2 places. Back here in Canada or in a place where they need to be. And when they need to be somewhere, that becomes very apparent. You don't have to spin the globe and try to find a place.
Yeah, there should be an outcry somewhere.
That's the issue right there.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think from my perspective, I actually kind of like watching our government do a little bit of consideration before it puts us somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't like shopping our guys.
And he did do a tour with Dallaire through Northern Africa.
Sorry?
The Minister of National Defense went with Dallaire.
Yeah.
So
he's consulting the right people. He's getting
the proper professional air of concern. That man knows Africa, and
well, yeah, we've got a guy here who's deployed 4 times. He could use just his credibility to go put his finger on the map and go, okay, let's go there. Instead, he's studying it a little bit. He's taking in key advice. You know what? I'm going to give him credit for that. I like to see that. But yes, I don't like what sounds like from the other folks in government that they're shopping around. The other thing, and just stealing a line a little bit from Lewis Mackenzie, he did a speech a while ago, and one of the things he highlighted was he saw that one of the reasons people are in love with peacekeeping is cheap.
Oh, yeah.
There's no naval bombardment that's needed for peacekeeping, so when you got a peacekeeping mission, no one's going to worry about the new frigate. Peacekeeping doesn't conjure up an idea about an F-18, even though you might have them. Peacekeeping makes people think of ball caps, pistols, and shitty jeeps.
kumbaya.
Yeah, it's cheap.
It's like getting your picture taken on the Green Line in Cyprus with the peacekeeper.
It allows the government to say, hey, look, internationally we're doing something, while not making key investments in those platforms that we need to be investing in. When you go to an Afghanistan-like mission, well, then you're buying M777s and Chinooks and G-Wagons and getting new tanks. Right. So this is one of the other things. It's not just the fact that there's a misguided view of peacekeeping. It's cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got a light, mobile force that doesn't cost anything. And it gives you brownie points.
So they kind of have a set amount of money they're going to spend, so they design what they're going to accomplish around that.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you,
Okay, fair enough.
when you were advocating for guys that you knew, personal friends from, say, the Bosnia era, there we are in Afghanistan. So we've got the new mission, the sexy one, and you're there looking after guys that are from the previous mission that the country never even knew about, certainly had forgotten about. So you actually have the experience we're about to go through. Because now that Iraq picks up and we're going to be doing something in Africa, we're going to be the forgotten mission.
Yeah.
So what was it like to try advocate to the government for guys from the mission that no one's talking about?
Yeah, well, it's frustrating, number one, because you know what's happened. It's real time for you, but nobody else has a clue. So how do you put something forth to another, entity that they don't know even existed? So, and then try and give it credibility, because nobody knows anything about it. And I really appreciate what the guys in the Medak pocket did, like stand-up job. I'll say that through and through. We were there a couple of years beforehand, and we were forgotten even more once Medak happened.
Right.
And because it took that limelight, that, and I hate using that word, but for lack of a better one. Attention, yeah. And it transposed it in that direction. One thing that it did do with Medak was that it allowed there to be some open dialogue on what, at the time, modern peacekeepers were going through. Because we weren't doing the Sinai and the Golan Heights and Cyprus. This was a whole different animal. And look at Rwanda. Horrible. I mean, all these different issues. And then so you try and get that forward, to the government and say, hey, listen, like, we got guys here that they're in a mess and they can't get any help. There's so much red tape, and it was frustrating is really the term.
You see, one of the things that needs to be highlighted here when we're talking about peacekeeping and the Security Council, take an example of, say, the Cyprus mission. You got the Greeks, you got the Cypriots, Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots, but they got their mother nation, Greece and Turkey. And in the UN, you could walk up to the ambassador and have a conversation, a pokey chest. You can have that. Well, the Bosnian Serbs did not have a table or a seat at the table at the UN. There's actually no one to communicate to.
That's right.
And that's what's going to happen in Mali or Congo, where there's 16 warring tribes. You can have the Security Council seat all you like, but you can't walk down to one of the local tribes that's trying to murder another tribe and talk to them at the UN.
Yeah.
So we're opening up a big can of worms here, and maybe it needs to be opened. But Canada needs to be aware of what's about to get opened.
Yeah, and and this is, I'm not going to pull any punches when I say this, and forgive me for that, is we're going to send troops on a peacekeeping mission. And this government has, and I don't care which government it is, they're all the same as far as I'm concerned personally. They're going to send these boys in there, and they're going to, they're going to be in harm's way, and stuff is going to happen. And whether they come back wounded physically or mentally, stuff's going to happen. This is the same government that isn't taking care of them on the other end.
Right now.
Right now. So we talk about that battle or those wars that disappear, they fade away because the next one comes along.
Here we are.
Here we are.
And
we're looking at it right now.
Would you agree that's a fair comment that even when you deploy and there's combat or there's intense operations, you're still going to lose dudes from heart attacks. You're still going to lose guys from car crashes.
Yep.
In Yugo, when I was in Bosnia, that's how we lost guys. We had, unfortunately, a guy died on leave. There will be casualties, even if nothing, quote unquote, nothing happens, and something's going to happen. You're going to war-torn Africa, there's going to be things happen. But honestly, even if we put, the guys we've sent to Eastern Europe, there's going to be casualties from that.
Yeah,
just from training.
Just from training, yeah.
So, what are you up to today in the veterans world? And I'm just looking at, what he's got here. Obviously, he does work on military mines. He's got the Sheepdog Lodge shirt on. I'm going to get you to talk about that.
Yep.
And I also want to talk to something else that's really visible right now, and that's the ink you got here and specifically it's the C6 liner. Do you mind taking a second and explaining the significance of that to these people?
Yeah, a lot of people will go out and they'll get ink, and there's not really any story to it. All my ink has a story to it, whether it's the statue which you find down in Vancouver, to the CN Rail employees. That was my great-grandfather went to Vimy. But this belt of ammunition, each bullet that's on here, and I just added 3 last year, each bullet represents a buddy of mine that's either taken his own life or has been killed in Afghanistan, so or Bosnia. So yeah, there's 58 of them right now, so that's a lot. So it means a lot to me, and these are people that I know.
Half a company of guys
Yeah.
are represented on your arm,
Yeah.
and they're not with us anymore.
Yeah. It's like losing more than an NHL team. Like that. So yeah, it's personal for me because I've lost family through this. So I can't imagine that anybody out there, whether you're in Ottawa or sitting at home, if you had 58 of your family members taken from you, that you wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. Tell me you wouldn't.
You know, and I know that story. We've talked about that belt before. I struggle with knowing that answer. I almost wish I just looked at it as just some war art you had on your body, you know. But we don't get to unknow these things. You don't get to pretend that these things didn't happen. They have happened, and here we are. And I tell you, the world of advocacy is a bit of a struggle. And I want to get your perspective on this right here. What you've done and what you continue to do in military minds, I use as an example of good advocacy. I converse with Scott all the time. Scott's asked me to engage when there's a guy that maybe I can relate to more than him. Like, I'm a reservist. He was a Reg Force guy from the RCR. So if a guy's got a reserve-specific problem, Scott's probably going to relate him to me. If I've got something more in Scott's era, back and forth. And we've only met twice before, other than today being the 3rd time, and that's been down in the States when we got together at SHOT. So this is an example of how to use social media in the positive way. He contacts me, we engage. We don't just put a witty comment on Facebook. No. There seems to be this idea that we've actually got a shortage of people that call it like it is, or what we really need is some other guy to put out some meme that makes the government look like dickheads. That's fantastic. Go ahead and do that. I like that stuff.
They do that well enough on their own.
But you got to be.
I would like that statement.
You got to be doing something that's actually doing something, right? Trust me, we got enough comments out there. And so, what do you see in the world? How do we get more people doing good advocacy and good online work? How do we do that? How do we get more guys rolling that way?
Well, to me, like what we do at Military Minds is we're global. We're not just in Canada. We've got admins all over. We've got them in the U.S. and Australia and New Zealand.
And Terje Elkimo.
Terje.
Terje. Yes.
Terje. Woo.
A resident Viking. Yeah, love them. You know, we've got admins everywhere, so we're 24/7. We're 365 days a year. We don't stop. As I said before, none of us takes a dime. And what we do is we actually connect with people.
Right.
We don't just, I mean, we have some witty memes and stuff like that we throw up, thanks to Alex, our graphic designer. But we're actually dealing with people every day. You know, and I hate to say this, our inbox is full. You know, and I wish it wasn't. So if people want to actually make a change in the advocacy world, is don't just, and this goes with the 22 push-up challenge, don't just mail in $22 and that's it, you've done your little bit. Try and do a push-up at least. Go over and talk to somebody else and say, hey, I'm doing this push-up challenge, let's do it together. Let's do it for these guys. You actually have to, you have to be hands-on with it. You can't just, you know, write something down and click press send and it's done. You actually have to get involved.
And we've had cases where, like, we've challenged the government, whether it's at, you know, engaging with them at other levels or even on this show, and we've, you know, put it to them and said, hey, we're challenging you, do this. Well, I kind of have a bit of a challenge to the veterans advocacy world. I want people out there to you seem to have done a good job of making your door open, making ourselves approachable. What we need to go to that next step. Now that the guy has come to you and he's got a problem, you need to have a couple of answers on what to do. So one of the things you could do is, everyone out there, learn about a program. One, right? Whether it's the VTN. Like, if you want to know something about the Veteran Transition Network, this guy can talk to you about how to get on it, what it does, how it helps. And he's a SME, subject matter expert on that, right? I happen to know a little bit about service dogs. So you want to talk to me about that? Let's talk. But that's what we need people out there doing. Go and learn about a program. You don't have to know them all, but learn a thing or two, and then find an online tool that you find effective. And I find Military Minds very effective because it does that. It doesn't just put, oh, here's a nasty shit bomb and then put it on the internet. Yeah. It actually talks to guys and finds the way in the country they're at their level, to get care that they need. Yeah. Like, you're here in Chilliwack, but you're normally up in Kamloops, and they've done work with Kiwis, Aussies, Brits, Norwegians, Americans, Canadians. And that's where we need to get to in the advocacy world.
Yeah, yeah. The whole thing of advocacy and what's happening to vets, it's not just localized to Canada, and it's not localized to the U.S. It's global. They're doing this sort of program to all of us. This isn't just a small entity. It's global. So and the same, like, we were all, you know, our countries, allied countries, were all involved in Afghanistan and Iraq. So in the UK, it's horrific over there what's happening, and the US. I mean, the adage down there is delay, deny, and hope that we'll die.
Right.
You know, 3D effect.
The 3D effect. You know, like, it's crazy. Like, when you have that kind of mentality going on, something's wrong. And so
I'd love to see a world summit.
Yeah.
That's what I hope to see in the next year, is a world summit. UK is kind of a central point, and try and get a bit of representation from every major country. And a lot of us are going through the same thing. Yeah. Australia seemed to have gotten away from a pension sort of scheme.
And if I follow you, I think you're not saying government summit, you're talking veterans.
No, I'm talking advocates. Yeah. I'm not talking government experts. I'm talking
people
us.
That really know.
Like, right here.
Scott, I want you to bare your soul a little bit here. What was the hardest part of your book to write?
The whole process was cathartic. I mean, it was a tough write. The dedication was probably the hardest thing I wrote, and it's to one of my best friends who killed himself back in '99, and he's the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing. Anyway, it's
and he's on your arm somewhere?
Yeah, he's number one on there.
Okay.
So it's important to read the story for what it is. There's lots of different hardships in there. You know, there's betrayal of core values all the way through. You know, we have this idea of what we're supposed to be in life, and, you know, sharing and loving and caring and taking care of other people and so on, and then you go into this sort of a theater, and you're going in, and this is back in the day, you're going in with this ideal that you're a peacekeeper, because our myth that was born was that, you know, we're going to go in and we're going to put our hands up and everybody's going to get along, and then you see genocide, you know, women and children being raped and murdered and so on, and they're just left on the side of the road like garbage, you know, and the whole thing was tough. But by far the most difficult thing was the dedication to Ranger, because he exemplifies to me what a good man was. And we came back and nobody knew what we did. Nobody gave a shit. And a couple of years later, he kills himself. You know, it was such a waste.
And in the era where we didn't do all that much to help people.
Yeah. Like, I got out in '94, and I actually, before I got out, I went to NDMC to see a head shrinker there. And basically, you know, I gave him the answers he wanted to hear because I didn't know what the hell I was even supposed to do. And at the end of the day, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. So it was a total wrong diagnosis because it was all new to us, you know. Like the Vietnam War had only ended, you know, 15 years prior to that, or 18 years prior to that. And it wasn't until 1980, I believe it was 80 or 81, that the American Medical Association actually recognized PTSD for what it was. You know, so here I am 14 years later in Canada, who basically has no idea, because back then it was shell shock and battle fatigue and all these other fancy, simple names. Sorry, not fancy, simple. So then we get this PTSD, you know, diagnosis, and nobody even knows how to figure it out. So, you know, a lot of what is happening now was, you know, we carried it on our backs for a lot of years, you know, just not saying anything. The stigma was huge.
So why was writing the answer that you took? Why didn't you make a play? Why didn't you write a song? Why didn't you become a hermit and sit on your couch and just not talk about it? Why's that pen to paper the route you went?
Yeah, I wrote the book, and initially it was just I was going to write some memoirs so that my kids would know what I did. And as I was writing, it kind of morphed into this.
So almost like a diary becoming a book.
Yeah, like a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I've got probably 1,000 pictures from there that I took, and lots that I didn't take that I probably should have. But anyway, I just looked at the pictures and just recounted all that. So I was going through my own therapy in that too, in that I was, you know, reliving the experiences over and over and over again as I told them. And that's actually a part of therapy that people can do now as well. So it was just, you know, just a memoir to start, and then as it built, you know, boom, here I am. I've got almost a 300-page book.
Right.
So,
and I mean, like right now, Kirk Bailey's put up there, he says a lot of guys killed themselves from the UNPRO tours. Yeah. And you know, here we are trying to get information about the Afghan vets and the suicides, and you don't even have that information being made readily available to you from a mission from over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So is it, in your opinion, is it the information is not possible to be gathered, or is there some body out there that just honestly doesn't want that question answered of how many people are killing themselves?
Well, I would imagine there's probably a little bit of all of that in there. I don't think the information is completely available at this point because in a lot of cases it's not even recorded. You know, bear with me when I say this, the francophone side of things.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a very good chance that if there was a suicide in the family, it's not reported.
Right.
Because of religion and then that whole basis.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not saying here or there, that's just a reality. And who's not to say that there's guilt in other families for the same thing?
And how do you know that that's what, I mean, it could be a veteran, but it's the divorce that made him do it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And usually a relationship breakdown is what leads guys to the darker places where they do take their own lives. Desperate measures, yeah, because they can't deal with it, and then the intrusive memories start, and then bam, they're down and out, and they're chewing on a shotgun or taking pills or whatever. So
you served in '92, was your deployment on UNPRO 4, and you were in a situation where, as your own personal wounds progress, and you move forward handling the situation yourself. You put in claims and at a later date, and that puts you in the new Veterans Charter. And you have folks that you served with that were in exactly the same situation with you, struggling with the same things with you, and yet because of the date they put it in, they've basically are going to get almost 6, 7, 8 times the compensation for wounds that you will.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
This is the analogy I use in that scenario, is that Jimmy and Johnny, they're both in, you know, wherever, let's just say they're in Sarajevo, and they get shelled, and each of them loses a leg. Same leg, Same battle, same everything. Jimmy applies on December 31st, 2006, and Johnny applies on January 1st, 2007. Different program. One's in the pension plan, and one's on the NBC.
Actually, the crossover date was April 1st.
Yes.
Okay.
April 19th, I got hurt.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's my point, is that from one day to the next, it's like a light switch. So Jimmy gets $2,500 a month for the rest of his life. Now, remember, they're both, let's say, 20 years old. They're both going to live to be 80. So one guy gets $2,500 a month for the rest of his life. The other guy gets $250,000 or whatever the ridiculous number is today. It doesn't add up.
And so with that, we've got an interesting case right here with Scott. You'll hear from the government often. They go, oh, well, no, hold on. What about all the other stuff? Well, guess what? Scott found a way to stay employed through this whole thing that he's gone through. So he suffers and works. He doesn't get ELB.
No.
Right? This guy here won't qualify for things like the PIA. He doesn't get the clothing allowance. So all those other things that they keep trying to say, oh, but they get more. No, he doesn't get it at all. He won't qualify for those. And so the only thing that was going to be handed to him got knocked by like 80% of it went away. And so bullshit. It's bullshit when you turn around and go, oh, it's only part of it. There's all these other things. Not to him. Right? So that's where we're at. So how do you find staying connected with the guys from those tours back before there was social media? Like, do you guys just drop off and disappear?
Absolutely. I actually just found out 2 years ago that one of them was actually living in the bush just outside of Winnipeg, and he had been in the bush for years. And it was actually a couple of the chiefs from one of the local bands were out on a walkabout, and they stumbled across his hoochie in the bush.
Right.
So they took him in, and they've gotten him help because he was a bloody mess. And so, I mean, this is normal. Guys just drop off the face of the earth. So when we talk about statistics or numbers, you know, how do we find out how many have actually committed suicide? Or they don't even know where these vets have gone.
Right.
Because there's no accountability once you leave service. That's it. Dude, there's no trail. That's a good thing in the respect that I really don't want the government following me around everywhere I go. They get that every year on tax time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, my well-being has to be looked after. They have a sacred obligation to vets to look after us. We wrote that check.
Yeah, and do you have experience with? So he's talking right now about a guy that went out in the middle of nowhere. We're going to draw attention to these delicious ribs that have just been.
They're getting roasted right now. If you can make it here in the next 20 minutes,
no, don't come.
You can have a rib.
No,
just one
off.
though.
Piss off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They're all ours. So he's talking here about some guy living out in the woods, but a lot of vets hide in plain sight. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys go back to being a plumber, especially from the reserves. That was our experience. Mm-hmm. Guys come home and he's teaching. If he's a school teacher, he's teaching class in a week, and he's back there and he's suffering in silence, but hiding in plain view. And so there's multiple ways these dudes hide.
Yeah, well, for me, I was a truck driver. It was perfect.
Right.
I just climbed into the cab of a truck and disappeared. I was gone.
Get in your safe
I was in
space.
my safe space.
It's not necessarily disappear or gone either, though, because that person could be choosing to keep working by self-medicating and taking their shit out on the kids and the wife at home, and there's some good programming and things that we can pass on to people like that they're not necessarily aware of, because they're out there just trying to keep going and they don't know what's available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where, you know, the advocacy comes in. If you want to do something to help guys out, and you know somebody that's maybe you think something's up, give them a hand. Show them how to do the paperwork. I mean, sometimes that's all it takes. The guy is just terrified to do the paperwork because there's such a bureaucratic nightmare.
All right, so I'm going to spool them up here, and Scott, talk about Sheepdog Lodge. Go.
I'm scared.
Tell us about it, man. What's up?
Sheepdog Watch. It's an organization in Alberta, started by Alan Russell and Dan Irvine. They've got a lodge on Red Deer Lake, and what they do is they host somebody with PTSD, or their family, or a group of people with PTSD, whether they're vets or first responders. It's a not-for-profit organization. So you register with them, you go out to the lodge, and you spend a weekend. It's a pretty easy-going retreat. There's always a host there to make sure that anybody that does come out isn't going to be, in a position to harm themselves. So they're looked after, and it's just where you can go out, and the guys that are there, Dan or Alan or whoever is the host at the time, they'll just talk with you.
So tell us about these guys. Like, what do they know? What do they bring to the table in this area?
Okay, well, basically it's peer support. And they're going to work on increasing their programs to where they will have medical practitioners involved.
They're growing, eh?
Yeah, Dan is a paramedic, and he's also a reservist. And Alan was with the PPCLI infantry. And for those of you who may be listening from other countries, he was a Edmonton city cop, and he's also a Canmore firefighter now. So he's worn 3 different hats. So
they know what they're talking
about.
about.
What they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've seen the ugly side of society, and if guys need somewhere to go, this the Sheepdog Lodge is there to do their help.
And so if people want to find out about that and they ask us, we'll probably just ask Scott. Yeah. And if they want to get in touch,
sheepdogwatch.com.
There you go. So that's how you utilize it. Yeah. And if you got a question or two, I mean, he's wearing the shirt, so obviously he thinks it's all right.
I support them 100%. I've been to the lodge.
Support them by getting a shirt online.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to their website and buy a shirt from them.
So talk to me now about some other things out there that you have found are helpful or effective. Is there any other groups out there that are doing some really good work? And, well, first of all, they just deserve a shout out, but also that the vets community would benefit from knowing about them. Anything else going on?
Well, there's a plethora of different outfits out there. MFT, I'll give them a shout out. They help out with the medicinal side of marijuana and vets. Mm-hmm. I personally don't subscribe to it myself. I don't take any pills. I don't do any drugs whatsoever.
That's a good thing. If you can.
A good thing. Yeah,
that's everyone's ideal where they want to get.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a way to get away from pharmaceuticals. So if it works for you, I recommend it.
So they're doing some good work there?
They're doing some good work there,
nice.
Yes, absolutely. Veterans Transition Network, VETS, VET, that one as well.
Vets Canada, they're largely working with homeless folks. They're doing a lot of good stuff.
I want to put out a plug for Renos for Heroes. That's just, recently a friend of mine, Mike Humphreys, he deals with them as well, and I'll give them a definite shout out. Doing great work there in that the vets come in and they build a house for a vet, and they just keep rolling it. And fantastic.
So Stu Jackson, proud to serve with you, Scott. Who's Stu?
Stu is actually one of the guys from my tour in Bosnia.
Nice.
He's doing well.
You guys still in contact?
Yeah, we're in contact all the time now, and I've actually brought him into the military Lions web.
All right, so right here, I'm going to pause him for a sec. So when he was talking about the stuff in his book that was stressful, I could feel his body heat from here. And my dog, who recognizes that in me, came by to sniff who's having a problem. And just as I ask you about your buddy, I can feel your whole body just like, okay, cool, there's a comfortable person, you're smiling. That's what peer support does. You don't actually have to have a degree in something to be able to help each other. Yeah. Right? And in fact, we just fucked this one up a little bit. We just took some time off, but we disengaged so much that we actually stressed each other out in the last couple of weeks because we didn't have that, right? And we both were suffering from that. I can physically feel him happier and healthier just because his friend sent him, a 4-letter happy to have served with you. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That can actually save a life, make a day better, cheer someone up. Yep. It's that visceral, guys, right? It really is. So that's the kind of stuff that helps. Yeah. And maybe it's more. Maybe we get you into the Sheepdog Lodge. But maybe all we're doing for you that day is like, hey, thinking about you. We're still here. Proud to have known you, right? That's peer support.
Yeah.
And we just fucked up on it.
You'd be the
Right?
You'd be
This is
surprised.
messy stuff.
You'd be surprised in the power of a phone call.
Yeah.
You know, it really makes a huge difference. And I think that if you phone somebody that you want to talk to because you just want to connect, don't give up. I know what that feels like, and the guilt of that.
Okay, what does it feel like?
Well, it's survivor's guilt. You carry that
Right.
for a long time, years and years and years. Because what if I would have just called back? You know, like that stuff will eat you up. It'll give you ulcers. It'll just drive you nuts.
Yeah,
And you'll
okay.
take that out on everybody else around you. You don't think you are, but you are. People with PTSD live on a higher stress level than everybody else. That's the truth. Because you take this, we get an event, boom, and then the regular person, normal, whatever you want to call it, gets an event, boom. A couple days later,
Yeah.
and then the next one, bam.
That's what I have to tell civvies there, eh?
You know, and we just keep elevating. So,
Yeah. For us, when you get cut off in traffic, they go, oh, well, so Joe Civvy gets cut off in traffic. You're not special. It's like, yeah, well, you ever been in a car accident where you almost got killed and you're in trauma and you're in shock? That's what it's like for every time we get cut off.
Yeah.
It's
elevated.
intense.
When I come up here today, Scott's got his truck out front. He's got his vet plates on. So when I see those plates, obviously I knew Scott was here. Like, okay, that's Scott's truck. But as I come up to it, I didn't know it was yours. And there's that, what's this weird car at Aaron's place? Because I've been here enough. I know who's there.
Yeah.
When I meet friends all the time, but even with my friends, I not once do I not look at their hands.
Yeah. Everybody gets a threat
There's
assessment.
not a backpack walks by me without me staring that guy in the eyes to figure out if he's a problem. And that's the world.
Everybody.
That's the world of PTSD. Every car is there to kill you. Every dog is going to bite you, and every person's there to harm you till proven otherwise. And that's what a lot of the civilian population, and not civilian, that's the wrong term. A lot of the regular population that doesn't have this problem, they don't get that piece right there. They see the vast majority of people as just humans, and then when one presents a problem, they have an issue. Everybody, every corner, every fucking wire by the side of the road, every bag of garbage is a threat until I know it is not.
Yeah.
And that is fucking exhausting, boys. That shit tires you out. Trust me.
Yeah, same with me. As soon as you go in the room, that person that looks like the highest level possible threat person, like at a bar or whatever, that's the person I go right up to and go, hey, how you doing?
So I'll give you an
Get
example.
right into
of
him,
that.
right there.
A couple of years ago, a friend of mine, he knows I was a truck driver. He was a truck driver as well.
Yeah.
And I collect a little bit of memorabilia in the trucking industry. And he found me a tachograph. Doesn't sound all that threatening, except for the fact that it's a black box. Thank you, Derek. It's a black box with a clock on the top. And he put it at my back step and left it there.
Oh, God.
So I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, and I walk outside, and there's this black box with a clock on the top sitting at my back door.
That's not good.
That's not a good thing.
Don't do that.
So yeah, don't do that.
So
That's
the
not
bomb
good.
squad show up and get it off your
No, I
your
dealt with
porch?
it myself, but
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, it's things like that that are triggering. I spent the 3 days following that at an elevated level. So anyway,
So, we'll do this for a couple more minutes here, not too many.
Put it out for some questions.
But that's where we're going.
Sorry.
So anyone wants to ask a question to Scott, just put her up there and we'll relay it. He can go over them as he wants. And so take a shot right now.
Keep it clean.
What haven't we asked you?
this is my real hair.
What do you want to talk about to the viewers here? And anything else that we haven't covered?
I'm going to bring something up, and I'm going to plug this just for my own shits and giggles. Next year, Military Minds is planning what is going to be the largest motorcycle rally in Canada. And it's for it's a fundraiser for Military Minds because we're developing programs now that deal with families of those of us who have combat trauma and PTSD. So we're going to leave mile 1, Harley Davidson in Newfoundland, and we're going to ride across Canada.
Oh,
And we're going to stop twice in each province for a night, and we're going to have a fundraiser in a kind of an event at each place. So I'm going to put that up on our webpage and on our Facebook page, Military Minds Inc., and share it around, and let's generate some money here, and we'll get families and whatnot in for some treatment there, because it's all going to come out of that money. That's going to be used for them.
So, your book's on the shelves now. Feel a little naked to put it out there?
Yeah, it's been a 5-year process.
No doubt.
Yeah, 5 years from the time I wrote it to now finding a publisher. Tactical 16, a U.S. publisher. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride. It's not over yet. This is just starting. It's only been out on the online outlets for about 3 weeks now. So as it gains some momentum, I'm sure I'll get some reviews. I've had some good ones already. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Right on. So you're up in Kamloops right now. Was there a time that it was? I'm trying to ask a question about feeling of isolation. Like, I know a lot of guys, they feel isolated, and yet they also want to be isolated.
Yeah.
Do you go through that?
Oh yeah.
A bit of both?
And that's why I drove truck for 18 years after I got out, was because I'm in my little cockpit.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to have any contact with society, I just go click and turn the radios off, and I disappear.
You're not isolated anymore. This book's out there.
Yeah.
People know your story, and you go home, but they can keep flipping through. And
I've done quite a few interviews in the past, and plus with Sector Sarajevo on History Television, I've had people just stop and go, as I'm walking through the mall, like, hey, I know that face, so I'm out there, but I still find my time to do my own thing. When I'm not advocating and pushing my book and stuff like that, I have a full-time job. I'm a heavy equipment operator, so I can disappear at any time for my days on shift, and I'm in a little hole in the ground and nobody can touch me.
so, in terms of getting healthier, what did you try? And then what worked?
Well, I've done the repetitive, talk therapy where you keep doing the same thing. That's where the book came in. I did neurological biofeedback, which was, for me, it was a nightmare. It actually made me worse.
Right.
In that, with neurological biofeedback, it's supposed to change your brain waves so that you think a different way. You can actually correct some thought processes. And I was trying too hard. Like they'll put up, let's say there's a Rubik's Cube up on the screen, and it'll spin around. And as long as you're thinking the correct wavelength, the Rubik's Cube will stay together. As soon as your thought processes go off wave, it blows apart. So I could, I was training my brain to keep that cube, or whatever the thing was that I was supposed to stay on that wave. I was keeping it just bang on the money, because I've always tried to do the best at everything I could. And anyhow, it actually screwed me up. I was forgetting more stuff. I was lost. I was angry. All the stuff that I thought I had under wraps was now coming back out tenfold.
Yeah, I tried EMDR. I know guys that swear by it.
Yep.
I think you cracked on with that, didn't you, Aaron?
Yeah, I got a Vietnam vet there.
Yeah, see, I tried it, and for me, it was awful.
Depends on who it is, though.
But
both the things you guys mentioned, one person be great, another person be bad.
Exactly.
That's exactly
It's
it.
all about delivery.
And everyone is different as usual.
Yep.
So that's one of the things that is totally rampant throughout this problem, is there's going to be different solutions for different folks. Dan Cruz got a question for you. He says, what advice do you have for those guys that are isolated but need that brotherhood contact?
Well, that's kind of a catch-22. They want the brotherhood, but they want to be isolated. So the issue there is reaching out. And now, are they going to reach out? Probably not. Are they going to accept somebody reaching to them? There is a possibility, and that's where it comes in for us to take the lead and give them a shout.
Okay.
So,
along with that, though, didn't you just tell me that you didn't start writing a book? You basically wrote a journal.
right.
And so, is that a recommendation, like pen to paper? Was there some therapeutic value in that?
Yeah, of course. There's therapeutic value in the writing of that. I mean, somebody can find it in painting. You know, I got a buddy of mine, Greg. He does beautiful paintings. He lives over in Port Alberni, and that's how he gets his release. That's how he deals with stuff. He plays guitar. So I mean, there's lots of different avenues. You just have to find what's right for you. I didn't just write a book. I write for 2 magazines. I've written for Pro Trucker magazine here in BC for 10 years,
Cool.
and I write for Iron Mike magazine in the States. You know, for the last year now. So there's that. I write poetry. You know,
Okay.
all kinds of stuff. So I mean, everybody's got to find their own thing. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
So
Dan, but
reach out, allow yourself to be reached,
yes,
and grab a pen.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Ralph's got a question for you. Ralph says, how many folks from the 90s military era didn't get a diagnosis for many years after their deployment and then finally got help? And here's the question part for you. It took almost 20 years for me to reach out. Is this a common thing, Scott? So
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very common thing, and for me, as if you want a numbers thing on my diagnosis, I went into the NDMC, National Defense Medical Center in '94. I was diagnosed incorrectly at that point, probably because I didn't want to give the right information. I was just going through the motions. I didn't actually receive a proper diagnosis until 2008. So for years I lived with knowing that something wasn't right. I just didn't know how to get out of it. Like figure out what the hell was going on. So I finally talked to my GP, and you know, so yeah, it's pretty common for guys to go for 20 years. So if you put that to today, we got all these guys that are coming out of Afghanistan or have come back now. We're not even going to see the full wave for 10 more years yet. And here's another thought. Guys that were on my tour back in '92 are only just now getting help for that tour. They've been to Afghanistan, and they said Afghanistan was nothing compared to that. For me, that was their comment. I'm not saying that Afghanistan was nothing for people that have been there.
Everyone's going to be different.
Everybody's going to be different. So for them, Bosnia was their first tour. That's the one that chemical change happened. So for those of you that don't know about PTSD, it's an actual chemical change in your body.
So I talked to a guy about a month ago who was on the Chicoutimi when they lost Lieutenant Saunders there in that accident when they brought that sub back from England.
Yep.
He's done surface ship deployments many times, done all kinds of stuff. But for him, that obviously was the worst thing for him.
Yep.
So we really piss into the wind when we try and assume what's wrong for the other person. And one thing, my advice that I put out there, treat your doctors like hockey coaches. Don't be afraid to fire them.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
If you got a doctor that sucks,
Boom.
gone.
Punt.
Gone. And trust me, they'll have plenty of clients, so don't worry about them. You need to find a doctor that works for you. They put me with one once, and I wound up basically being the emotional support for this person. This person had no idea how the world worked, so I spent the first half hour explaining context. I'll never forget it. She asked me, well, if that bombing that day that you went to sucked, why'd you go the next day?
Yeah, that's the mentality.
Like there's a fucking war union and we do this in shifts or some bullshit like that. Like, what the fuck, right? And so for me, I had to make an assessment there that this person's unrecoverable. Like, I could not get this doctor to a position where they're going to be helping me.
Yeah.
Fired. But it took me a while to grow the guts to do that. I didn't know I could do it. I didn't know I had the authority to turf bad care.
And how old were you?
Oh, dude, like we're talking 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
When you think about the 20-year-old. Oh, God.
Right.
Who's been trained to do as he's told.
And they got parents that go, okay, well, we went to that swearing in thing, and they said they're taking care of our kid, and hit and miss.
Tim's got a good question here, so we are going to get to that in a second. But yeah,
Tim.
that's. And so from that, I wound up with a doctor now that's, for me, a really good fit. And I know other vets that don't like this guy. Or I wouldn't say they don't like him. They've gone to him, and he was the one they had to not use.
Yeah.
But for me, he's been outstanding. So don't be afraid to fire. I wouldn't say shitty doctors, just ones that aren't working for you.
But to be fair though, you can't just put that out there without it
You got to give it a try.
Not everybody knows whether it's shitty or not because you're not right in the head.
Fair enough.
If you're walking out of your doctor's appointments consistently and going off and getting loaded, and then going back and then avoiding things, coming back with a plan to not go down that hole again,
sounds like a
then you
personal
have
story.
to look at, well, that was me
Right.
in 2008, 2009, 2010,
That's a lot of us.
and I went through 3 or 4 doctors through my transition, which was a gong show, whatever. Yeah, those are some telltales. If things are getting worse, then you got to look somewhere else.
And one of the things I had was while I was doing the doctor dance, they were also fucking with my med levels. So 1 month they're like, oh, you're having 150 of this, and then I went all the way up to 600 on one. Tim's question's a very good one. Tim James, are you sending this to us from Cowichan? Probably, right? Because it's too nice up there. You need to come back to a shitty place. You should move to Surrey.
He's coming back every couple weeks.
Well, that's
We're
good.
going to have him on the show.
His question is, do you have a plan for balancing the public exposure with the need for privacy? Or is this on your radar at all?
Oh yeah, it's on my radar. Yeah, and, you know, being where I live and also my personal desire for exposure in this whole scenario, I can limit it at any time. I mean, I'm going to get revenge reviews and negative reviews. I'm going to get people that want my autograph every other day. I'm assuming, you know, it's on the radar. I don't know of too many Canadian authors that really have that issue. Nobody by any stretch has ever become rich from it, because that's certainly not my program there. So yeah, it's on the radar, but I'm not too concerned about it. I'm definitely not going to be of fame and fortune anytime soon.
So when you've been doing too much work, too much advocating, and you need a break, how do you know? How do you know that, okay, I've crossed a line here, Scott needs some fucking time off?
I'm usually pretty edgy. I get irritable.
Do other people know first?
Oh yeah.
Do
Everybody around me knows that I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I go quiet and my nostrils flare, time to vacate the room, because shit's gonna get ugly.
When my kids stop asking to do stuff, that's how I know.
Yeah.
When they don't want to throw the football anymore, or they don't want to talk to you, well, why would a kid not want to talk to me right now? Well, because I'm being an asshole.
Yeah.
And that's normally a good gauge for me
Yeah.
to kind of like, okay, what's going on here, and back off. And the dog is another good litmus test. You know,
For sure.
It's good to have the dog.
Yeah. Sasha's wonderful, by the way.
And it's been tough with me. I've had a few times this past 2 weeks from my son. It's like, Dad,
So-
you're freaking me out.
And sorry, I just got to spit this one out because my memory's pissed. So I brought my dog down to SHOT Show the first year. I had a great time. Last year I tried to do it without the dog. You guys never fucking saw me.
Never saw you.
I hermited in my hotel room for like 4 fucking days. That was a shitty idea to try to do something like Vegas with all the lights and noise and crazy without Sasha.
And wingnuts around us.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be in an environment with a whole bunch of firearms in people's hands without my safety blanket.
Yep.
So I shouldn't have done that, and I won't be doing that this year.
Good. Good.
Sorry to cut you off, man. Just, we both have shit memories.
Yeah. Any other questions?
That's all that's coming in right now. I'm good. Is there anything else you want to put out there to the folks that are watching?
I'm going to say a couple of things. One is, if you find that things aren't going right for you, you know, you're having issues and whatnot, for God's sakes, find help. If you got to talk to your mom or talk to your wife or talk to your husband or whatever the case is, phone a buddy who's still in Petawawa or in, Fort Lewis, I don't care where they are, call them. Break the silence and call these people. The other thing I want to say is, once you figure out that something's not right and you're getting help for it, don't play the victim card.
Mm-hmm.
Find some bloody resilience in yourself.
Be a wounded guy.
Yeah,
don't be a victim.
Yeah, don't be a victim. Like, people will say, oh my God, Scott, you suffer with PTSD. No, I don't. I live with it. I don't suffer with it. So it's
Interesting.
You have to find a resiliency level. I mean, I've been doing this for 24 years. So you can survive. You can live a good life. You just have to do it for yourself and make it happen. you know, and it's not easy, but you gotta grab life by the balls. And here's the thing that I like to use. If today is your halfway, what are you gonna do with the rest of your life?
That's a good one.
Some guys, their halfway is 11 years old. They're dead when they're 22.
Right.
We have so many, well, I can speak for myself, get so many people reaching out and going, hey, thanks for what you're doing. I could never do that, and I couldn't do this, that, and the other thing with the crowds and being public. But all of us at some point need to push ourselves a little bit. For me, a big goal was to get back to go to a concert. And it was just little baby steps, little by little. It's going to the Abbotsford Air Show every year. And smelling the kerosene, the JP fuel remind me of Kandahar, and it's hot there as well. And exposure therapy, doing it on my own, and little by little, there, me and Brian, we're doing really well. We're doing a lot of things that others might not be comfortable doing. However, we're pushing ourselves right to the limit with it too. So we're still doing shitty because we're trying to get something done here. We're on a mission.
And the government knows that, and we know that you know that.
Right.
And we know that you're intentionally roadblocking us just to fuck with us.
Oh,
we get it. Yeah.
We're on to you.
Yeah, so what I want to wrap up for me with, if there's anything else from anyone else, from other people, that's cool. But for me, this dude exemplifies how to advocate the right way. He is doing it. He lives it, and then he'll tell you about the good and negative experiences that he's gone through to make it easier on you. He'll put a comment out there on Facebook, but then he'll work like a dog to get guys connected with what they need. So that's what I want to thank you for, is setting a really good example of what I consider top-level advocacy. That's the way it's got to be done. So I thank you for that.
And you got a good discipline too. You set a high bar for people like me, because every once in a while I'll go push myself too far, and I'll wake up some morning and I will fucking put something out there that I'll be like about 4 or 5 hours later, like, no, what am I doing? I'll take that off. And I'm down to, I don't like playing that. You know, the resiliency thing, that I have to be very vigilant about that, and you set a high bar on that.
Yeah, I just, for everybody that's watching, these two guys right here are machines. Seriously. Anybody that gives them a bad time, you need to give your head a shake. These guys do so much behind the lines for all of us. It's unreal. It's humbling to be
trying to make it work, man.
Yeah, no, you guys are awesome.
And look at that. While we're running a show here, I'm even making ribs for my brothers because I love them. All you bastards that are stuck at home and you don't want to go out, get on fucking YouTube and learn how to make ribs. You'll have like 500 different recipes you can watch people cooking.
My meatballs are better than yours.
Smoking stuff. And well, he barbecues meatballs. They're fantastic. I didn't even do meatballs.
But these are better than mine, I can tell already.
These ribs are pretty, you can't really capture it there. Maybe it's like 3D effect. You bet you'd like some? Come on over.
So I think we're signing off, eh?
Yeah.
All right.
So, hey, we're back. We've taken a summer break. VGR's back.
Wasn't a great break, but we did our best to try and have a break. It's
and we're doing what needs to happen, and that means we're still here, right?
Look up Sheepdog Watch.
Absolutely.
And one of the guys just posted the link. It's in the feed here.
Cool.
So
Sheepdog Watch. Send them $1.
Send them all you guys cracking out your push-ups, do the last part. Send $22 to a vet's charity of your choosing. Right?
And we've all got one that did something good for us, so you know what one that is already.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you, my brother. Love you.
As usual. Cheers, guys.
All right, my friends. We'll see you again soon.